All right, good afternoon. Welcome to Beavercreek Rotary. I am your host and president, Stephen Brown. Surprisingly, still here. I'd like to thank our greeters, Pete Bales and Karen Lampton, Eric Marcus, our ticket master, and of course Mike Zwick, Pete Bales, and Mark Weinstein for our great programs, and Jim Gundel for our website and YouTube. I'd like to invite Jim up for invocation. Denny, sorry.
Good afternoon. Would you please join me in prayer? God of the universe, since we are not conscious enough to fathom your ebb and flow, help us to bring our best efforts to what we can know, to love our friends and family, to treat our employees and fellow workers fairly, to seek justice, and to help those in need, and do the best that we can be, and to live the way we are. In your holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. I would like to say a couple things real quickly. As you know, we lost one of our founding members, Scott Hadley. He passed away last Friday. They had a great service today and great viewing yesterday. And I just want to share a couple things. Heard obviously some amazing stories about Scott. And I feel like I say this all the time, and so does Brandon. I wish I would have taken more time to get to know him before he passed. But with that being said, when I talked to Nancy yesterday, it was a really interesting story. I've never heard of it before. I know our Christmas basket, annual Christmas basket that we do, Scott and his wife kind of headed that. And we used to use Lafinos. And of course, we use Dots now. What I didn't know was that Lafinos told Scott, you know, hey, unfortunately, we are going to close the store in October, which, you know, it is what it is. And then Mike, who obviously is a member here as well, decided that he was going to keep the store open for 3 more months and close the 1st of January, with keeping in mind that he wanted to do the annual Christmas basket, which is amazing. Obviously, you know, that's a great service that we do to our community. It's my favorite program, but it just speaks highly of Scott, that he had that kind of influence. He obviously was all about service and very, very humble about it as well. So definitely a great loss. Second story is I grew up at here in Beavercreek, went St. Luke's, went to St. Luke's with Stephen Beach, as some of you might recognize that last name. Tim Beach was a member here at Beavercreek. I did not know that until Stephen Beach told me, but it was really cool. All the pictures that I saw yesterday were amazing. This guy has certainly lived a life, but it was a really cool to see a picture with Tim Beach, who passed away probably 10 years ago or so. But at the Popcorn Festival. So I was able to send that to Stephen, and his family has never seen that photo before. So that was, it was amazing, you know, taking the good from the bad. But with that being said, let's keep Scott Hadley's family in our prayers. I do have his memorial thing that came yesterday at the viewing. So I have a Sharpie, and the back is blank. And then if we run out of the back, you can do the front. But if you just want to either sign your name or write something nice, I'd like to give this to his family. So that will go around. Yeah, so with that, Secretary's reports, David Cusack.
Okay, so we have a unusual circumstance. One of our visitors was popped in and interested in Rotary as a potential member, Deb Grant.
Welcome.
The self-soliciting potential member.
I'm just going to point out that she's sitting next to soon-to-be president Rotarian and a past president Rotarian. So you picked a really good spot.
My presence, we are at 56.9%.
All right. Thank you very much. Sergeant at Arms, Brian Lampton.
Well, good day, everyone. High today in our weather, 90 degrees. Partly cloudy. Tomorrow, high 88. Evening thunderstorms expected. Sunday, high 70, so much cooler. 50% chance of rain. So as they're so brilliantly doing, it may rain or it may not. So this weekend, Greene County hosts the International Amateur Radio Organizations at the Greene County Fairgrounds, known as Hamvention. Since 1952, Hamvention has been sponsored by the Dayton Amateur Radio Association. It has grown from 600 attendees and 7 exhibitors. Now there are 2,000 spaces and thousands attend from across the globe. Also on Sunday, the annual Blessing of the Bikes takes place. And that will be at Kilcare in Beavercreek Township. I say it that way because it's half in Beavercreek Township. Gates are opening at 10. There'll be food vendors, craft vendors, and 2 live bands. Weather permitting, almost 1,000 motorcycles will attend. The Archdiocese of Cincinnati provides several priests and deacons to bless the bikes and bikers. Proceeds of that event go to our local Greenbucks chapter. So that'll be a nice time if the weather's good. A lot of you have heard about this master key that was stolen that opens all of those blue mailboxes. 4 arrests have been made. Apparently 26 boxes were stolen from in Kettering and Beavercreek around the area. And they did recover the master key. So I guess you can go back to using those boxes again. According to somebody official, and I looked through the story twice and I couldn't find it. The 2020 census made mistakes. I know that's very hard to believe. So I don't know who discovered these mistakes, but apparently 14 states, including Ohio, were either overcounted or undercounted. And according to the article, Ohio was overcounted by 1.5%. Watch them change the maps again. Yeah. In Adelphi, Maryland, a lady named May Beal celebrated her 82nd birthday, and the next day walked and graduated from the University of Maryland. She earned her bachelor's degree in business management to help her event planning business. She changed careers. She used to be a licensed practicing nurse. She started school in her late 70s, and she'll probably be paying off student loans till she's 120. South Fulton, Georgia, police report a shooting in a Taco Bell. And so all the caution tape was up and cones were out and they were doing their investigation. And across the street at 3:30 or at 3:15 a.m. at a 24-hour McDonald's, a shooting occurred. So that's a safe neighborhood. No injuries reported, and the police say those 2 shootings were not related. In sports news, the Buckeyes coach Ryan Day will receive an extension of 2 years and an increase in pay to $9.5 million. That will make him in a 3-way tie for the 3rd highest paid college coach. Let's see, Alabama's Nick Saban is at $9.9 million, and USC's Lincoln Riley is at $10 million, being the current highest paid. Michigan State and LSU's Brian Kelly, that's weird, Brian Kelly's at LSU now, they also make $9.5 million. Now, Karen, before I read the story to you, I didn't know your team was on this list until I got, they'd almost all written down, so sorry. This was a piece written by Mike Freeman in USA Today, and it talks about the 10 worst fan bases in all of sports. And he had a whole bunch of criteria that he researched, and this is where he came up with the 10 worst. Number 10, Philadelphia Eagles fans. I find this one hard to believe. Number 9, Notre Dame football fans. Oh, no. Hey, God's team, you know, I don't know. Number 8, University of Texas football. Number 7, Golden State Warriors. Number 6, the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yes.
Oh, JD. All right, he knows something about that. Number 5, Red Sox. Number 4, staying in that town, Boston Celtics. Number 3, and this is very believable to me, New England Patriots. The second worst fan base teams in sports, Dallas Cowboys. And the number 1, Miami Heat. Yeah. Okay, on this day in 1873, Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis get a patent for blue jeans. I didn't realize they were that old. 1927, Charles Lindbergh takes off across the Atlantic in the airplane called the Spirit of St. Louis. In 1506, Christopher Columbus had died. In 1862, President Abe Lincoln signs the Homestead Act. In 1998, the chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra, was laid to rest. Wow. And in 2007, the longest running animated series, The Simpsons, aired its 400th episode. Some birthdays today. In 1908, the man who shot Liberty Valance. Anybody know that? The actor? That's Jimmy Stewart. That's a John Wayne movie, but to me, it's a Jimmy Stewart movie. You owe yourself. That's a really good black and white, great movie. In 1913, Bill Hewlett of Hewlett Packard was born. In 1944, singer Joe Cocker. And this one was fun. 1946, Sherilyn Sarkeesian, also known as, or better known as, Cher, 75 years old. All right. So 3 contractors are bidding to fix a broken fence at the White House. One of them from Chicago, one from Tennessee, the other from Montana. They all go to the White House to examine the fence. The Montana contractor takes out a tape measure, does some measuring, works some figures, and says, I figure the job will run $900. That's $400 for materials, $400 for my crew, and $100 profit for me. Tennessee contractor does some measuring and some figuring and says, well, I can do this job for $700. That's $300 for materials, $300 for my crew, and $100 profit for me. Chicago contractor doesn't measure, doesn't do anything. He leans over at the White House official and says, $2,700. The official leans back. You didn't measure like the other guys. How'd you come up with $2,700? Chicago contractor whispers, that's $1,000 for you, $1,000 for me, and we hire the guy from Tennessee to fix the fence. I hope it doesn't really actually work that way, but you never know. Some interesting information here. The lighter was invented before the match. I didn't know that. This one was interesting too. France last used the guillotine after Star Wars premiered.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago. The water in Lake Superior. Yeah. The water in Lake Superior could cover all of North and South America in a foot of water. Yeah, it's very deep. The lighter the roast of coffee, the more caffeine it has. That's good for us coffee drinkers to know that. If the timeline of the Earth was compressed into 1 year, humans wouldn't show up until December 31st at 11:58 p.m. If you were to dig a hole to the center of the earth and drop something down into it, it would take 42 minutes for it to get there. And this one, I've said it a million times, and it really astounds me. We went to the moon before someone figured out it was a good idea to put wheels on suitcases. I mean, really? What did the fish say when it ran into the wall? Damn. If 4 out of 5 people suffer from diarrhea, does that mean someone enjoys it?
I think Fleming did that like 2 years ago.
Yeah, he did. He probably did this one too. What is a man's idea of a balanced diet? A beer in each hand. How do you know a man's planning for the future? He buys 2 cases of beer instead of 1. I cracked myself up. 2 men meet on opposite sides of the river. One shouts to the other, "I need you to help me to get to the other side." The other guy replies, "You are on the other side." And what is the difference between an oral thermometer and a rectal thermometer? The taste. You? Yeah, that's nasty. All right, do we have any ham operators in the room? Licensed ham operators? All right, well, I was going to exempt you from fines. I know those of you that know Carl Cologne, he's one. Our former sheriff, Gene Fisher, is one. Let's see. If you own a motorcycle, that'll be $1. If you put mail in a blue mailbox this week, that'll be $1. If it's if you've been to Taco Bell or McDonald's this week, that'll be $1. If one of your favorite teams is on that top 10 worst fan list, that'll be $1. If you didn't know who Old Blue Eyes was, the chairman of the board, you didn't know he was called the chairman of the board. If you don't know that, that'll be $1 because you're too damn young. And see if you're not wearing your Rotary pin. And if you have not visited another club this year, just this whole year, that'll also be $1. I will open it up for happy bucks if I've got anybody's dollars left.
I always like to say when we have a guest, please do not judge Rotary off of the sergeant. And believe it or not, that was a super clean one. I have a couple of happy bucks. One is for Alex and one is for Mike Canada. Alex left Florida early to come to Founders Day. Mike Canada went to Florida to avoid Founders Day. But I will say, I'm not going to fine you because he did, and you had to be there to get this, he did enjoy my voice message and text me later. So. Who else is happy? Eric?
I'm happy quite. First, last Friday, my granddaughter graduated with a degree in chemical engineering from Purdue University. And presently, she's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, courtesy of the 3M Corporation, where she's going to work looking for an apartment. My second dollar is because I'm here today and not sick with COVID at home. I hate being isolated. I was talking to myself. I was the only one home. I talked to myself for the entire week, and I was hoarse.
We're glad to have you back too. Pete?
I have 2 happy bucks. One, my daughter Kara, she's going to be in 7th grade next year. She tried out for the middle school entourage program, the singing and dancing program, and she made it. She got the announcement yesterday, so our house was real happy, and she was singing all around it. The second is a happy buck. It's also maybe a prayer buck. My oldest son, Jack, turned 16 on Monday, and he takes his driver's test on Tuesday.
Oh.
So maybe say a little prayer. And maybe watch.
Thank you.
Really good.
David Cusack.
All right. Just got a few. So the first thing I want to say with Scott Hadley's passing and Stephen, your comments, it is always remarkable when we find out all of the skills and abilities and history that our members have after we serve alongside them for years. Me, it's done so well on the club that somebody like Scott Hadley didn't make his service about him, he made it about the people served. On a lighter note, tonight is daddy-daughter dance at St. Luke, so I see our favorite firefighter there in the 50s gear, 50s attire, sock top types.
Brady will be there.
Next Thursday, my dad turns 80.
All right.
Wow.
So St. Luke's, what time should we show up? 9 o'clock. Anyone else? Brandon?
I've got two. In light of Scott Hadley's funeral, when I had my son a few months ago, I remember immediately thinking, like, it just, y'all understand. And I thought I would immediately give my life for this person who I just met moments ago. But then a day later, just by fortuitous chance, I saw a post online. It said, it's really easy to say you'll die for your child, but it takes a lot more to live for your child every day. And that like really hit me. And it's a choice every day to live and make the best of life. And I just was really reminded of that as I was listening to the accomplishments of Scott. Like, he clearly lived every day for 82 years. So I just remind you all and challenge you all to keep living every day. And then on a lighter note, I thought Dave missed a guess, but I just realized it was Mike Canada.
Oh.
I'm just glad everyone notices what I'm going.
Yeah, Brandon's been to 3 meetings in a row now, so. Anyone else? Shannon Graham, what do you got?
Oh my gosh, you caught me on a surprise here, actually. Let's see here. I'll just throw a work thing out there. I got awarded 2 pretty good sized projects, and that kind of fills my season for majors, and so I'm pretty happy with that.
Huh, congratulations. All right, let's do the drawing here. The last 4 is 6294. 6294. And just so the guest knows, we only half gamble. Half the proceeds go to our annual Christmas basket. So every December, we go around to city of Beavercreek to families that are less fortunate, and we give them toys and food. So. Yes.
Does he have to share part of his?
Well, he has to pick the right card, and he didn't. So the pot grows. But Scott Hadley was a big portion of that program, which I think it'd be great if we named it after him. Actually, I'm just going to throw that out there. I do have a couple of quick announcements. This coming Tuesday, 4:30 at Be Hope Church, we are installing the flag for heroes. With Memorial Day coming up, there's a sign-in sheet going around. There's actually 2. So we do install it, and then eventually we have to take it down. So if you can make it to help out, I know Jim's got a good amount of people volunteering on Tuesday. So Thursday might need a little bit more help. But with that being said, we have our ceremony next Saturday, the 28th, 4:30 p.m. Be Hope Church. We haven't been able to do this ceremony in the last couple of years, obviously because of COVID, but we are doing it again the 28th, Saturday, 4:30 at Be Hope Church. Brian Lampton is going to be one of our keynote speakers, as well as Mayor Stone. So if you guys can make it, we'd love to have you there. I will send out the official flyer, which is actually on the table over there, after this meeting to your email, so you'll get it there as well.
Stephen, sorry, is that inside or outside?
So it's outdoors, weather permitting, but Alex has warned me that the weather's never, the weather has not been kind to us in the past. Though I think it was good one year, and we had the fire truck with the ladder, American flag, and then they got a call and they all had to leave. So what a perfect example of service. So, but yes, so it's going to be outside. We have chairs. We are working on having music beforehand as well. So it'll be a nice ceremony. Anything else? Anybody else have? Eric has nothing? Perfect. All right, let's start with the program here. I'd like to invite Mike Zwick. He usually never introduces people unless he really likes them, so.
Sir, I only introduced Jim Brown from Wright State and my friend Tom Nichols. Tom has been a friend of our club since 2008. He has announced 4,000 Dragons games plus, right? Is that close? Yeah. Through 14 seasons. He is the Director of Media Relations and Broadcasting for the Dayton Dragons professional team. He was calling Votto's number last night, and that was pretty exciting. He has 34 years in sports announcing, which is, he's like an encyclopedia, and that's really cool. He went to Ball State. I'll just throw that in, being a Bowling Green guy, whatever. So we have a trivia question. I sprung this on Tom. His last assignment before Dayton was with the South Shore Railcats from 2004 till 2008. Who can tell me what city the Railcats come from? He's from Indiana. I told you, nobody knows. You have to throw the baseball. Gary, Indiana. Tom, please come tell us.
All right, Mike.
Good stuff.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike, for inviting me today. I've been here a few times, and hi, everybody. Good to be back. Thanks for having me today. I always do start off with a trivia question, and it's sort of in concert with our Major League Rehab. If you're not a Dragons fan, you may not know this week we have had the most famous Reds player of all playing for the Dragons, Joey Votto. And that will lead me to a trivia question. I do speeches all the time. I always ask one trivia question at the beginning and give away a little prize package. Never ask this question. So it might be, once I ask a question a few times, I get a feel for how hard it is and whether I should keep asking it or bag that question. So if this one's too hard, I'll lighten it up a little bit. Our first ever Major League Rehab, and again, a Major League Rehab, if you don't know what that is, it's unique to baseball. You don't see it in any other sport. Let's say you've got a Major League player. Now, this is not a minor league prospect who's coming up through the minor leagues like most of our Dragons players. This is a current existing Major League player, well known to the fans, who has an injury. And as he's about ready to come back, and in Votto's case, he told us he had COVID and was in bed for 9 days with COVID. When he got his strength back to come back and play, he played for the Dragons for a couple of games. And now he's heading back to the Reds. That's what a Major League Rehab does. Doesn't happen anywhere else. If Ezekiel Elliott with the Cowboys is injured and comes back, he doesn't go back and play for Ohio State again on the way back. It doesn't happen anywhere else. So in baseball, it does happen. Our very first injury rehab was a famous one, and maybe along with Votto, the most famous. This is going back to 2001. We had a pitcher, it was a well-known Reds pitcher, coming back from being retired for several years. He'd actually been the most valuable player of the 1990 World Series. When the Reds won the World Series in 1990, they beat the Oakland A's. He was the MVP of the series. He had been out for years and years because of injuries. And that summer he came back. Does anybody remember that player, who it might have been? That is correct. Jose Rijo, you were the winner. So that question wasn't that hard. One person knew it. I was gonna, my backup question was gonna be, oh, you do it too? Okay. Well, I'll put this here. There is a kid's t-shirt here along with a hat and a baseball, Dragons baseball. If one of you knows a child that would like a t-shirt, you can become a hero for that person. I'll put this right here. My backup question was going to be, name another Reds player who's done an injury rehab with the Dragons over the years. There have been many, going back over the years. Johnny Cueto, Brandon Phillips, Aroldis Chapman,
long list of Reds players who've come back to the Dragons and done rehabs. Let me get into my presentation. First of all, let me tell you what I do for the Dragons. I am the team's broadcaster on radio and television. We televise 25 games a year, Saturday and Sunday home games are on TV locally on the Dayton CW channel, that's channel 26. On Spectrum Cable, it's either 13 or 1013, depending on your package. I also broadcast when we're not on TV, we do every game on radio. So when we're not broadcasting on television, we're on radio on 980 AM WONE radio. And I'm also the media relations director for the team. And what does that mean? Well, for example, this week we had Joey Votto. So all the press conferences that Votto had with the media, I had to set all those up, kind of conduct the press conferences. I write most of the press releases for the team, a lot of our website stories, any media coverage that falls into my area. So let's take a look here. We have had great attendance in our 22 years of Dragons baseball. This past season, we finished 5th in the nation in total attendance, 120 teams. We ranked number 5. This is the all-time list of longest sellouts in professional sports or college sports history in North America. These are the top 5. The Dragons are number 1. You can see some of the other teams on the list: Boston Celtics, Portland Trail Blazers, Boston Red Sox, Dallas Mavericks. I think 2 of those teams are on your list of the worst fan bases, the Celtics and the Red Sox. But we broke the record in 2011. The record when we broke it was actually 814 by the Portland Trail Blazers. We hit number 815 in 2011. Since then, the Mavericks and the Red Sox also surpassed the Trailblazers. We reached 1,385 sold out dates through the 2019 season. And 2020 season was completely wiped out due to COVID. And when we came back in 2021, we had a 30% maximum capacity. So that was the end of the sellout streak. This season, we've actually, every game we've had this year, the attendance has been above the sellout number. So that's been a good thing for us. We're kind of back on track with that. Famous Dragons alumni. Here are some of the most famous Dragons players. Jay Bruce, Homer Bailey, Joey Votto, Todd Frazier. Those are some of the more famous. We've got others also on the list, current Reds players like Jonathan India, Tyler Mahle, or former Dragons. My favorite former Dragon is a player, and some of you, if you've been a Dragons fan over the years, you've had your own favorite maybe. My favorite would have been the Dragons shortstop in the year 2011, who later went to the Reds and became a center fielder. I remember meeting this player for the first time in 2011, just before the first game. He was on the bench sitting in the dugout. I walked up, introduced myself, and I said, "I've heard you're pretty fast. Do you have any goals for the number of stolen bases you might like to achieve over a course of the season?" And at that particular point in time, the Dragons club record for most stolen bases in one season was 37. And I asked him his goal, and he said, "Yes, I do have goals." And he actually had a mathematical formula based on the number of stolen bases he had the year before and how many games they played and how many games we played. And he came up with a number, and he said, "My goal is, based on that formula, is 96. And again, our club record was 37. So when he told me that, I thought, okay, whatever. Good luck with that. And as things turned out, he actually broke the club record before the end of May. And by the end of the season, he'd actually sold himself short on his goal, because by the end of that 2011 season, his total number of stolen bases was 103. And that was the most in the history of the Cincinnati Reds organization, Major League or minor league. The next year, he moved up a level in the Reds system, and his total for the next season, 2012, was 155, which was an all-time record for any organization in all of baseball, Major League or minor league. He eventually got to the majors, became eventually, in my opinion, the best defensive center fielder I've ever seen, and maybe in baseball history. but never really hit enough. And his name, of course, if you're a baseball fan, you know this name, Billy Hamilton. And Billy was a Dragons player who was so exciting. Most Dragons players, if you come to a game and you're in a seat or up in the suite, as you will be tonight, correct? And you will look down the field, and most of these names are kind of anonymous players. And you hope the team wins, but most fans don't really know the players. Well, that season, everybody knew Billy. Back by about the end of May, anytime he'd get on base, the crowd would you just sort of hear a murmur start to rise because everybody knew what was about to happen next. And we had a series of games late in the year. We had a 4 road games in 4 days, and each game started off, Billy was our leadoff hitter in our batting order. He started off each of those 4 games with a base hit. And when he got on first base, on the very first pitch, he stole second base. And on the very second pitch, he stole third base. This happened 4 days in a row. Actually, the 4th day, they stopped him after he stole second on the first pitch because the second baseman went over and started holding him on the base like a first baseman would. And there was no way he could get enough of a leadoff to steal third. So they completely gave up the whole right side of the infield because the second baseman was playing on the base. But that was the way they had to defend Billy that year. Unbelievable player. I remember going down after the game, and our manager was a guy by the name of Delino DeShields, who's now the Reds' first base coach. And that day, the league had announced the league most valuable player for our league that season. In the minor leagues, they actually announce it before the season's over because they want to honor the player on the field. And they'd announced the league most valuable player. And that day, after that 4th day in a row, where he stole second base on the first pitch and stole third base on the second pitch, I said, Delino, I didn't even mention the name. I said, you and I both know he might not have the numbers to support it, but we know who the real most valuable player was in the league this year. And he said, yes, we do. And that was the best year the Dragons have ever had. We had a record that year of 83-57, and he was our leadoff hitter. Got to the major leagues, played a long time for the Reds, but just couldn't hit enough in the majors. Again, I talked about Reds rehab assignments. I have this in my presentation. We've had one this week. Joey Votto, again, 9 days in bed with COVID. And boy, when he told me that just scares the heck out of you to think about a 38-year-old professional athlete who's strong as an ox. And that just is and I'm worried about my 80-year-old father. That just shows you how serious that can be if he was out for 9 days, is actually in bed. But Joey Votto did a rehab assignment. Now, when they come to Dayton, as a major leaguer, the fans love it. They give him a great ovation. He enjoyed it. You do see, however, why the player is in the minor leagues. And that is because he probably hasn't picked up a bat for a month. And we expect him to come back in. And for example, he came up last night with a man on base in the last inning. And if he gets a home run or even an extra base hit that drives that runner in from first base, we win the game. And I'm thinking, man, what a story that would be. Joey Votto drives in the winning run. We win the game. The fans go crazy. We did win last night, but he didn't drive in the winning run. In fact, he hit into a double play and into the inning. But the next inning, we won the game on a walk-off double off the left field wall. And but that's, again, the players, when they come back, they're major leaguers, but there's a reason that they're rehabbing. It's because they don't have their timing back. They just haven't played. And baseball is a timing sport. You're trying to hit a fastball coming in, even from a minor league pitcher, coming in at 95 miles an hour, and there's a lot of timing involved. And if you're just one split second late on that swing, you're either going to pop it up or miss it completely. So that's what we saw. He had 7 at-bats with us. He got 1 hit. He struck out 3 times and walked once. You got it. He did have 1 hit. It was a hard single, and he hit 2 balls to the warning track that were caught. And the second one I thought for sure was going out of the ballpark. And again, I'm thinking, this is going to be a great moment for the fans. They're going to cheer like crazy when this ball goes out. It didn't go out, though. It was caught on the warning track, and that's just the way it went. Okay, Dragons baseball, more than just baseball. If you've been to a game, you know what I'm talking about. Our folks in our early years were very wise in one respect, and that is they understood that for this team to really make it, we can't just try to appeal to baseball fans. There are people in the market like myself who love trying to predict who's going to be the next of the 123 Dragons players to get to the Reds, but there just aren't enough of those hardcore, serious baseball fans. And so we've been fortunate with good strategy to market our team, not to baseball fans or men of a certain age, as some minor league teams might have done. What's been our target market, really? Families, that's correct. Kids and families. And that's what Dragons baseball has really been all about. If you come to a game, you know all of the things we do on the field to try to entertain families, people who are baseball fans or not baseball fans at all. Someone may come to a game, you could have two people sitting in the same row, and one guy knows, or lady, that our shortstop, Ellie De La Cruz, is a great prospect and has a future as a Reds player. And the person sitting next to that person may go home that night and someone says, "What'd you do last night?" "Oh, I went to a Dayton Dragons game." "Oh yeah? Who won?" "I don't know, but I still had a great time." That can happen. That can happen just as easily. So that is what Dragons baseball is all about. This particular slide shows emphasis on the things we do on the field. We've got Heater and Jim in this shot, two of our mascots. We've got all these characters around the ballpark. We do all kinds of sing-alongs and skits and contests on the field between innings of the game. Baseball is a perfect sport for that because about every 8 or 9 minutes, 3 outs are recorded. One team comes off the field, the other team goes on the field. The pitcher gets 8 warm-ups, gives us about 1.5 minutes to do something on the field to entertain everyone who's at the game, not just big baseball fans, but everyone else. My favorite one we call the Toddler Race. Any of you seen the Toddler Race? We bring 3 young children who are old enough to crawl, but not quite old enough to walk, and their moms come down with them, or dads, and we set up a little track on the field, and between innings of the game, they have their first career race. And the idea is crawl to mom at the other end, first one there wins. One of the 3 will move out ahead of the other 2, be almost an arm's length away from winning, and the fans are kind of on the edge of their seats. But what happens with toddlers? Something shiny just caught his eye, or he started interacting with one of the other toddlers. Well, over here, somebody just had a baby. Was that? Okay, you know how this is going to go. So, all right. So the toddler almost gets to mom on the other end, but all of a sudden he stops, and everyone's going, "No, no, you're going the wrong way." And eventually someone will win. He won't know why, but it'll get real loud. And someday his mom or dad can explain to him, "You got your first career standing ovation from 8,000 fans at a Dayton Dragons game. One day we'll have your child in the Toddler Race at a Dayton Dragons game." All right. So that's really what Dragons baseball in many ways is all about, is family entertainment. This is the Cincinnati Reds farm system. And I'm getting way off camera here, so our people watching on Zoom are not even seeing me.
We have 2 cameras.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right, good, good. This is the Reds farm system, and I'll take you through the process of a minor league player moving his way through the farm system toward the major leagues. Every player that plays for the Dragons is under contract to the Cincinnati Reds. That is part of the deal that the Dragons ownership group has with the Reds. They provide all the players and coaches. We provide everything else that goes into the event, including taking care of the ballpark, selling the tickets, marketing the team, running the event, hotels on the road, bus company to take the players all over the Midwest, all the things that go into running a team, we take care of. They provide the players and the coaches. How do they find those players? Well, the Reds have, I think, somewhere around 30 full-time baseball scouts. Their job is to find talent. So each scout is given a territory. Let's say, for example, if there was a player at Beavercreek High School that was a future, maybe a prospect to play for a minor league and major league team, there'd be a scout that might come out, and that scout's territory might be Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. So he would have those 3 states as his territory. So every night in the spring, day like today, for example, he is out somewhere at a game, whether it's a high school game or a college game. He's going to know all the players at the University of Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Ohio University, Indiana University, Purdue, Ball State, my alma mater, and the smaller schools, including schools like Sinclair, which have also produced major league players, or at least minor league players. We've had some Sinclair players on our team, a couple of them, in fact, over the years. So his job is to find those players and then file a report back to Cincinnati. And they'll have this giant database of players in their computer, and they'll rank them all. Each player will be given a grade, his current grade and his potential grade. In other words, what is his potential down the road? Not just what he can do right now, but what is his potential future-wise? So every July, there's a draft, and the Reds will get 20 picks. They'll lean back on that database, and they'll select 20 players. And those 20 players enter the Cincinnati Reds farm system. So they would initially go to the team in Arizona. You see it here, the Reds logo out in the Phoenix, Arizona area. That's actually at the spring training site in Goodyear, Arizona. If you do well there, you go on to single A, Daytona Beach, Florida, the Daytona Tortugas. If you do well in Daytona, you go on to what's called high A. That is the Dayton Dragons, Dayton, Ohio. If you do well in Dayton, you go on to double A, the Chattanooga Lookouts in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And if you do well there, you go to triple A, Louisville Bats in Louisville, Kentucky. So it's Arizona, Daytona, Dayton, Chattanooga, Louisville, Cincinnati. That's the path. Not every player will make it. In fact, most players are weeded out somewhere along the way. About 10% of those players that are drafted by the Reds will eventually reach the major leagues. So only about 10%. So the fun part for us is trying to predict which 10% are going to make it. So that's the process of how a player goes through the minor leagues and to the major leagues. This is our league. It's called the Midwest League. It's been in existence for decades. You can see the map here. It includes Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. 12 teams in our league now, and about half the major league players came through our league. Roughly 50% of all major leaguers came through the Midwest League. Who are Dragons players? Well, again, taking you back to the scouting process, they are those players that the Reds have identified either as high school, college, or junior college players as being worth a chance to take a shot at and bring that player into the farm system. So oftentimes, these are the very best players that the Reds have been able to find. We've had a number of players on our team now or in other years who won their state award for best player in the state. Gatorade sponsors it every year. It's called the Gatorade Player of the Year. So for every state, you've got for example, the Gatorade Ohio High School Player of the Year, one player. We've had, so that gives you an idea. That's a pretty good player right there. We've got several players on our team right now and have had in the past who were their state's Player of the Year. And a number of players also who were big college players. For example, our catcher right now, Matt Nelson, played at Florida State, led the entire nation in home runs last spring of 2021. He was at Florida State, led the entire country in home runs. Now he's our catcher. That gives you an idea of the quality of play on the field. We do all of our travel by bus. This is the Dragons team bus. It's sort of our home away from home. 50% of our games are played on the road. That's 66 home, 66 road per season. I personally also do travel with the team, so I call all the road games. So 132 games per year we play over a course of a season. We have what is called a split season in minor league baseball. What is a split season? Well, that means we play a 66 game schedule. And at the end of 66 games, the team that's in first place is declared the first half champion. That means that team is already guaranteed to be in the playoffs at the end of the full season. So you play a first half season of 66 games. The team that's in first place made the playoffs. Everybody clears their record back to 0-0 again. And you play a second half. Now, right now, the Reds probably wish there was a split season in the major leagues. Unfortunately, there's not. But for us right now, we happen to be in first place. So I've been kind of looking at the days and thinking, okay, how far do we have to go before we get to the end of the first half? I think we've got about 31 games still to play, and we've got a 3-game lead right now. We're in first place. If we hold off the number 2 team, which is the Great Lakes Loons out of Midland, Michigan, and that's the Los Angeles Dodgers Farm Club, then we will be guaranteed a playoff spot. So that's the goal right now for the team. That's my presentation. We've got about 8 minutes, and I'll be happy to take any questions about anything I've asked. You always got a great question every year for me.
I'm not gonna do a question.
Okay.
I'm gonna do an announcement.
All right.
Since we have the Dragons presentation today, you all should have in your email box a email about the Rotary District 6670 Dayton Dragons Night on August the 6th. Now, I'm announcing it here because I think Shannon agreed. Would you agree to help me on this, Shannon? Talk to me about it. I think Shannon agreed to help me put together a list of people that want to go to the game and how many tickets they want, so we can order the tickets as a block and all sit together as a club. So the tickets are $14, and the great part about this is these are real seats, not lawn. The great part of it is $7 comes back to the Rotary District as a contribution from the Dragons, and that money is going to fight through the End Polio Now campaign at Rotary. So it's a great opportunity to give a $7 donation, enjoy the game, and see the Dragons.
Thank you for that speech. I appreciate it. So we, again, if you haven't been to a game, that'd be great. To enjoy a game with friends and family is always the best way to do it. And again, if you're going to come to one game a season, whether you're a big baseball fan or not a baseball fan, it is a fun night. And you got the right time of the year. Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about Hunter Green and how special he is? And also, are the Savannah Bananas a real organization?
Okay, good questions. I think, have you asked me about Hunter Green before? Seems like no. Okay.
He barely comes to meetings.
Okay. We had a picture in 2018. This young man had been a legendary high school pitcher from Los Angeles. And he'd already, by the time he was out of high school, he had already been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And the reason was he threw fastballs harder than any other high school pitcher ever lived at that point. And the Reds took him. The Reds had the second pick of the 2017 draft. Now, you don't want to have the second pick of the draft very many, because the draft is based on an inverse of your previous year's record. In other words, the World Series champion picks last. The team with the worst record picks first. So hopefully you don't ever want to have first, second, third pick anywhere near that. But that particular year, the Reds had the second pick in the draft. And they took Hunter Green. And that was 2017. So 2018, he is assigned to pitch for the Dayton Dragons. And I remember sitting in the press box in our ballpark and thinking to myself about 4 o'clock the afternoon when he was going to pitch, first game. So this is a cold Monday night in April. It's like April the 8th of 2018. And it's like 38, 40 degrees. And, you know, it's hard to really get loose if you're a pitcher. And he's been pitching out in Arizona in spring training where it's 90 degrees. And we're hearing all these stories about he's throwing 100 miles an hour. And I thought to myself, you know, I've heard that stuff before. And it never really seems to be true because you hear all these exaggerated stories about something, how hard a guy threw, how far a guy could hit, and it's usually exaggerated. So I'm thinking to myself, you know what? How hard is he really going to throw today on a cold April night? And I think to myself, well, you know, I'm going to predict the over-under is going to be about 94 miles an hour on that first pitch. If it's 95, that's good. If it's 97, that's excellent. Tells me if he throws 97, that those stories are probably true. He probably was throwing 100 miles an hour in Arizona. So the first pitch of the game comes in, and I just immediately look up at the video board, which displays the speed of every pitch. I look up there, and the number that comes up is 100, 100 miles an hour on a cold April night. And he actually, by the end of that 2018 season, he had broken the stadium record, which was set by Aroldis Chapman on a rehab assignment with the fastest pitch of 102. And so now he is in the major leagues with the Reds. That was 2018. He was involved in a, depending on whether you consider it a no-hitter or not, the Reds had a game last Sunday. Hunter Green started, pitched into the 8th inning. The Reds did not give up a hit in that game, but they also didn't score a run. And Pittsburgh, the team they were playing, did score a run based on walks and some other things without a hit. So Pittsburgh was the home team. So there was no bottom of the 9th inning. So there was only 8 innings, and the Reds didn't give up a hit over the 8 innings. It's kind of a no-hitter, but since there was no bottom of the 9th inning, they didn't have to go the full 9. They lost the game 1-0, even though their pitchers threw a no-hitter. Hunter Green was the starting pitcher in that game. So he is going to have a lot of interesting days. He has great days and he has not so great days. He's just a young guy who's learning to pitch, has an amount of ability that no one's seen before. So I think he's going to show some inconsistency, but we saw a lot of that when he was in Dayton. The first month of the season, he couldn't get anybody out, even though he was throwing, again, 100 miles an hour, but everything was right down the middle, and hitters, even at our level, can hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball if you throw it belt high right down the middle of the plate. And so he was taking a lot of hard contact back. It was coming, I used to say it was coming in at 100, going back out at 101. That was the way it was, but he improved over the season. And obviously, I don't have to say that because he's with the Reds now. If he hadn't improved, he wouldn't have jumped all the way up through all those levels I talked to you about earlier. And you had something else there. What was it? Oh, Savannah. Okay. That is a team. They used to have a real team that was in a league, the South Atlantic League, and they lost their franchise and got into an independent league that's not affiliated with a major league club. And they took this whole family entertainment thing to a real extreme, things that you probably wouldn't be able to get away with doing in a game where you're involved with a major league team. For example, the mascot might step in and take it back. So we couldn't do that. No matter how much Bob Murphy wants to do family entertainment, our mascot's not getting in the bat in a game. It's just not happening. They can do things like that because they're not affiliated. So they've really got a whole campaign of funny things they do. And they have 1 week in the spring every year where they have several series of games, and people drive in there and travel from all around to see, because it's just hilarious. It's a novelty act is what it is. Savannah Bananas is what it's called. And they've sort of picked up on, over the years, mascots and humor in baseball has kind of grown. At one point, I know we're out of time here. At one point, it was the mascot was basically just a high school kid wearing an oversized baseball for a head and a cape, and that was it. That was it. He just walked around and didn't do much of anything. And this guy came along, a college student in San Diego, California, named Ted Giannoulis. And Ted developed this chicken suit and became the most famous mascot in sports history. They called him the San Diego Chicken. And he turned it into a whole act, and he was hilarious. And that was the beginning of the whole mascot thing in sports. because he had all these little skits he would do, and I've seen him 100 times. I still laugh every time. He's getting up in years now because he started this thing like 1973, and he has to be rich as can be because he got paid for every game out there that he did. He traveled around to do 150 games a year, and so that's how it sort of came along, and it's just kept going. So yeah, you're right. Dressed up in a chicken suit and built a career, became a millionaire. So I'll take one more, and then I know I need to get out of here. I don't want to hold anybody up from getting back to work. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
So a few years ago, I think you mentioned how little
They have raised the salaries. Major League Baseball has, they've done a few things. They've increased salaries now. They're still not getting rich at the minor league level. They're making about $2,000 a month, but that's better than it was. The big money that they make really is what we call a signing bonus. Every player who comes out of college or high school and signs gets a one-time payment called a signing bonus. Every player gets one. Depending on how much they want you, it'll increase. So if you're Hunter Green, his signing bonus as the second pick in the whole draft was over $7 million, okay? That was his signing bonus. There are plenty of players whose signing bonus is $1,000, not much more than the price of the plane ticket to get you to the city you're going to be playing in. It can, and depending on how much they want you, it will vary like that. So, but the players, they've done all sorts of things in the last 2 or 3 years to try to improve the players. We now have every Monday off. We never had that. I remember my first year as an announcer, 1990, we started the season and played the entire first half. I told you about the first half, second half. We played 70 consecutive days with a game. And some would say, well, you know, they're just playing baseball out there. It's also, you know, practicing each day. And you're at the field for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. So that's a lot. So now every Monday is an off day. We've got 2 buses instead of 1, so we're not crammed in like sardines as we travel to the next city. There's been some improvements. The players are given 2 really good, nutritious meals a day, where when I first started announcing, they would give you like $7 a day in meal money, and you would go to some fast food restaurant. And I always thought, okay, so you're giving these guys all this money to be your future major leaguers, and then and then their nutritional value is at the very bottom. And they figured that out, that that's not the best way to go. So it's improving. They're still not making a ton of money, but there's not too many guys complaining because they know if you get to the major leagues, where the minimum salary now, I think, is $700,000 a year. That's if you're the very worst player that almost never gets into a game, $700,000 a year. Average major league salary is about $4 million a year. And the top major league players are making about $30 million a year. So there's money to be made. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it today.
Yes, thank you so much again for coming. Per our tradition at Beavercreek Rotary, because Rotary is big about literacy, we are donating a book that you've already signed to the Greene County Library. It's called Baseball Then and Wow. So wow, I guess she picked this out for you, obviously. So, anything else for the good of the club? All right, let's stand for the pledge. You like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good.